Styr. An enraged Styr was truly one of the more terrifying sights anyone could have the misfortune of witnessing. He stood at nearly 6'3" with a thick head of brown hair he kept tied tightly back. A short trim beard covered his face, with the notable exception of a deep scar that ran from his left temple to chin. His hazel eyes held within them a fury that could shake even the hardiest fellow. Few know the real story of Styr. Before he became Styr, Lucas Kiev was his birth name, descending from a long line of Kiev blacksmiths. Years of apprenticeship under his father hardened his muscles and resolve. Upon his 23rd birthday, his father granted him ownership of the forge with pride. Along with the forge came a gift perhaps even more treasured. Lucas's father gave to him the Kiev family ring imprinted with the family crest, the bear. Styr's craft became unparalleled in the region, and his reputation reached the ears of many nobles. Not all appreciated his expert crafts, though. A rival smith by the name of Dever saw many of his lucrative business deals falling into the pockets of the Kievs. Driven by desperation, Dever crept out in the dead of night to the Kiev household. With a single remorseless thrust, he buried the dagger deep into the heart of Lucas. Or so he thought. Lucas Kiev returned late that night from the forge to find his father in a pool of his own blood, lifeless and cold. Lucas did not need any evidence. Dever's scent was all over this. Dever's fate was sealed. The judge found Lucas Kiev guilty of murder and sentenced him to slave labor in the distant mines. He was shackled and boarded a ship bound for the Sapphire Coast. Fortune smiled upon the great man, if you could call it fortune, when a vicious storm caught the ship's crew off guard and smashed the ship to splinters. Lucas managed to secure himself to a barrel and pumped his legs toward what he hoped was shore. Nearly 2 full days passed before Lucas reached the beaches of Icegard. It was not long before he collapsed in exhaustion. He awoke the next morning to a prodding in his ribs. A pack of 3 orcish scouts surrounded Lucas, growling menacingly. He knew he had precious little time if he hoped to survive. Still prone and shackled, he delivered a mule-like kick beneath the jaw of one of the scouts, snapping its head back. Using the momentum of the forceful attack, he quickly shot his legs beneath him in a kip-up and brought his 2 mighty fists to the temple of the second scout. The final scout's hesitation would prove his undoing as Lucas spun behind him and tightened the chain of his manacles against the orc's windpipe. He breathed a sigh of relief as the strangled orc fell limp. However, he noticed a moment too late the second orc's club flying straight towards his head. All went cold and black for the mighty human. Lucas awoke within the clan of Durak Thor. Durak Thor was so impressed with the prowess of the human that he offered him a place in his clan. Lucas gladly accepted the offer, considering the alternative would most certainly be death. Durak Thor ripped the boar's tooth necklace from the surviving scout before impaling him upon his spear. "Styr," spoke the mighty orc chieftain as he threw the necklace toward the newly named Styr. For 5 years, Styr traveled with the orcs. He raided, pillaged, and battled in the name of Durak Thor. Fate once again smiled upon the mighty barbarian, however. During a raid on one of the small villages, the orcs quickly found themselves outmatched and cut down by a clever trap laid by the humans. Styr was the lone survivor of the Durak Thor raiding party. The commander of the militia, Michael, took pity on the great man and brought him to his home in Icegard. Despite his efforts to try over the course of the year, Styr could not rejoin common civilization. He needed the thrill of hunting. He needed the wind in his hair. Michael acknowledged this burning desire within Styr, and placed him with a caravan bound for Talask. The village of Talask offered Styr a home he could love. It was wild and free enough to allow him to be his own man, yet civilized enough so that one need not scavenge for survival. He found work and home as old muscles returned to creating at the blacksmith, and new muscles took up arms against the raiding goblins and orc tribes. Styr found home.